Good afternoon and welcome to LVS Perspectives number 41, Corporate Social Responsibility, pulling it all together. What does it mean for all of us? So this is a project that was created by the WOW Group, and over the last month we've been talking about sustainability and fashion. We've had debates, we've been talking about equality, equity, diversity and inclusion. We've had assemblies, and we had one this morning where we're pulling it all together literally, and we've set our community a challenge. And the challenge is to write an essay on either of the two following topics. So the first one is corporate social responsibility. What is it and what are organisations doing in the UK? And the second one is sustainability and equity, diversity and inclusion. What is LVS Ascot doing as a school? What do we do well and what could we do better? And that competition is open to all senior school pupils from year 7 upwards. 500 words for years 7 to 9 and 1,000 words for years 10 to 13. And the closing date is the first week in May. I think it's the 9th of May we're doing it at 4 o'clock. And we really do encourage as many of our pupils to take part, and you as parents, please help them. What's your experiences in your world of work? What do you see? What do you see what the school's doing or not doing as well? And if we can pull together so that we can get some fabulous entries, and they will be judged by the WOW Group, and they will have a prize at President's Day this year in June as well. So today we've got another competition to judge and more discussions to be had. We have a new panel today. And again, I'm going to introduce Yarmila Yu, who is the founder and MD of Unique Marketing Limited, and she's also one of our parents of 2 daughters in the senior school. So Yarmila, over to you and to our panel.
Lovely, thank you, Christine, and welcome to everybody watching this live or potentially on replay. And thank you to our panelists, who I'll introduce in just a moment. It gives me absolute pleasure to co-chair this second LVS Perspectives 2-part series with you, Christine, because it's just been phenomenal. The reaction and energy that we've seen from the staff and the students, from the juniors right up to the 6th form within the senior school, around these topics that the World of Work group, the WOW Group, have put forward for them to consider. And some might think, oh goodness, these are quite industry, business, corporate topics to be considering. But actually, we were having various discussions in the WOW Group, and we came to the conclusion that actually it might be too late if people start thinking about these topics when they're actually in the world of work. It's as they enter the world of work, maybe they need to already have some ideas, insights and thoughts as to how they can shape the world of work so that it works better for them as well as individuals. So we were, yes, quite ambitious with putting forward the topics of EDI, CSR, ESG to the students, but it really got them thinking about what this meant. And certainly our sustainable fashion topic that we covered in last week's session really demonstrated that the students, they have got bags of ideas, pardon the pun. They've got lots of ideas, and they are the consumers, they are the retailers of the future, they are the business leaders of the future. So they will be entering the world of work with the ideas that they were sharing with us, which was extremely insightful. So quick plug for the World of Work group. If you don't happen to know who we are the World of Work group. We are a parent body at LVS Ascot. We're entrepreneurs, business leaders, people in business coming together to bridge the gap between education and the world of work. We use our insights, connections and influence to bring world of work, business and industry topics to life via events or publications that you may see us develop. We're here to inspire all of the students as to where their studies can take them. And the teaching staff said that when we inspire them, they actually apply themselves more to their lessons, which is good news. We support the Careers Service. There's a fantastic careers service at the school, and we provide pointers on employability. We are, many of us, employers, so we can share what we look for when we're hiring, either for that work placement, work experience week, or a full-time role, or even accepting students that are coming on via a grad scheme or an apprenticeship. So there's lots of world of work opportunities there. So if you are a parent and this appeals to you, do come forward and join our group. So enough from me. I'd like to get into the discussion with the panelists. And to kick that off, we're going to do a quick sort of 2-minute round. I'll mention 2 names and then I'll mention another name just to get everybody introduced, and then we'll start the debate. So if I could please start with Lee and then with Sigrun.
Thanks, Jamila. Hi, my name is Lee Lefevre Ayer, and I'm the HR director for Enterprise Holdings, which is Enterprise Rent-A-Car in the UK. And I'm also a parent. I'm on the WOW group. And I think that for me, the way we think about it is, employees today really want to work for a company or work for an organization that is focused on a culture of sustainability. And so it's really important because, as Jamila said, people have already decided and made up their minds about what their values are and what's important to them at an early stage. So how do we really build a workforce that mirrors our community and stands for something good and is a force for good in the community? And diversity, equity, and inclusion is really important with that. How do we make our workplaces welcoming to all, where everybody feels like they can belong and make a contribution? So those are just some things that I'm thinking about today in my role and in what I do every day as a mom too. We talk a lot about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how does that really make up the fabric of our business and our lives today? It's a really important topic.
Thank you, Lee. Sigrun and then Jonathan.
Thank you. So my name is Sigrun Wagner. I'm at Royal Holloway, so not far from Ascot, the University of London, and I'm a senior lecturer in international business and sustainability, as well as head of department for strategy, international business and entrepreneurship. I've written a textbook on business and environmental sustainability, and that's tailored to a course I teach for our second-year students, business and the natural environment. And one of the great pleasures over the last couple of years is how many more students are taking this course, this module. So there's real interest amongst young people in sustainability and responsible business topics, which is another course I teach for our final year students. And all our final year students have got to take a course in responsible business. A couple of other things that I'm involved in. So I'm also involved in the LGBT network at work. So for me, it's really important that you can be yourself at work and in education and at school. And I know for some people that is more challenging than for others, but that's been, for me, as of a real bonus in my career. Being myself has actually meant I can flourish more. The other thing I'm involved in, in an extracurricular activity, is carbon literacy training, which is all about inspiring and empowering individuals to take climate action. And so I've got these sort of 2 sides to the story here in terms of the academic interest, but also the personal interest. So I can't teach about business and environmental sustainability without looking at my own environmental footprint. So a lot of the things that I teach about, I've tried in my own personal life, and it's been really good to see that with some of the posters and the recommendations. So students are really good at seeing what are the problems, but then also looking at what could be the solutions.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sigrun. Jonathan and then Paul, please.
Thank you, Jamila. It's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. My name's Jonathan. I work for PlanetMark. There's a few different things that we do, but essentially we help organizations measure their significant environmental impacts, convert that into carbon, set them targets in place to reduce that carbon footprint every year. We work with hundreds of organizations, including many schools, colleges and universities. And I think one thing I'd like to focus on as part of this discussion is we independently verify all of that company's environmental impacts and data, and check the evidence associated with it to ensure that everything comes from a place of truth. And so when people look to organizations and schools and universities look to communicate that into the wider world, they can communicate it with confidence, and people looking at that company's data and carbon footprint, they know that company isn't greenwashing. And I think and that's largely being driven by young people. There's a lot of mistrust for organizations and what they're doing. And I think something like that is helping build that trust, which I think is a really important space in the sustainability agenda at the moment. So greenwashing as a huge issue, that's something that we help avoid.
Fabulous, thank you. It's really, really good point. And trust is at yet again an all-time low, according to the latest Edelman Trust Barometer research that came out earlier this year. So there's a lack of trust in media, in governments, in big business. So anything we can do to really, lead the charge and be authentic and truthful is absolutely helpful. And certainly within the sustainability space, there's a lot of greenwashing going out there. I think the new code just coming out from the CMA will try to do to greenwashing what GDPR has done to privacy and data protection, but we've got a little way to go. So that neatly follows on to Paul, and then Teresa, and then Donna, please.
Thank you, Yomila, and hello everyone. My name's Paul. I'm the CEO and founder of my own business, Purpose Amplified, and that is it's a small consultancy, and I help smaller businesses, in particular startups, micro businesses, to become more sustainable by helping them to identify what the point and the purpose of their business is. Because I believe once a business has done that, why they exist, they can then start to work out how to amplify the positive impact that you can have. I principally do this through something that's quite similar to Jonathan's work, through the B Corporation framework. I'm a huge advocate of the B Corp movement, and this is another one that allows businesses to conduct an assessment and then have it independently verified. But rather than just their environmental credentials, it covers absolutely everything across their business. So their social impact, including ED&I, that's a big section within it. And it's fantastic. I love working with brands, including some fashion brands. So I think it's wonderful, and I'm very glad to be on the panel today. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. I think we just lost you there for a second. I think the Wi-Fi was maybe going. If I could hand over next to Teresa and then Donna.
Good morning, everyone. It is an absolute pleasure to be with you all here today. So my name is Teresa Bowie. Gosh, what do I do? I'm an entrepreneur, so we wear lots of hats, don't we, as entrepreneurs. So I'm a best-selling author. My book, Closing the Gap: 5 Steps to Creating an Inclusive Culture, was highly commended at the Business Book Awards as an exceptional book that promotes diversity. So I'm a real diversity and inclusion kind of advocate and thought leader. So I work with organisations of all shapes and sizes to help them accelerate their inclusion journeys. I'm also a non-executive director for an NHS hospital trust, so people, of course, are central to that. And again, I look at that through the kind of the workforce and the EDI lead. But again, there's real synergies there between ESG as well. So that's something I am hugely passionate about. I sit on a number of business boards. So I am a business board member of the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Women in Enterprise, and I chair their ED&I kind of division as well. So you can see there's a theme that's going on here. But I say really passionate, particularly say with that focus on ESG. So for me, when I'm working with organisations, these letters and acronyms, they really mean something very important for an organisation. So how do they operate? How do they show up in the world? And what difference are they able to make? So I'm really passionate and excited by the conversation today. So thank you for having me here.
Oh, you're welcome. Most welcome, Teresa. And yes, in fact, we love a theme. We love several themes, and also very importantly, connecting the dots. And I know this is something that Donna, in your role as a counsellor, you're probably challenged the most on, because all of these things will sort of land at your doorstep, and you'll have to wade your way through them all and connect them all up. So over to you, Donna, for your thoughts.
Hi, I'm Donna Stimson. I am the lead member for climate change and sustainability in the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead, and slightly frustrated in this third career of mine, the first being an international management consultant on organizational change and strategy, and then the second a builder. I'm about to launch the day after tomorrow a climate partnership between businesses and and the council, but the council is not going to have a say in it, so it will be independent. And I think that's the most frustrating thing, is the party politics and the silo mentality that gets in the way of getting things done when it comes to climate, which is actually the most important thing at the moment, is lack of biodiversity, the slowness around energy transition, and the mental health issues that are getting in the way, not getting in the way, but we need to work very hard at. So it's a very exciting time for me. I've always been sustainable, working with kids on the SDGs, doing a lot of repair cafes, and fixing jeans with some amazing stitches. And yeah, I do a lot of work in this area, and I've loved what I've seen in the competition. So well done, kids. Good on you. Thanks. That's all for now.
Fantastic. Thank you, Donna. And yes, just literally, I think it was just over the weekend, we heard that the government had released a paper and its strategy, and is planning to, is it 10 times increase the amount of charging, electrical charging up and down the country. So yes, I think many have said it's a good start, but it maybe not go as far as we need it to. And certainly there's lots of different areas that need.
We've really got to G up how businesses can contribute, and with businesses now realizing that if they greenwash, they won't get anywhere. The most innovative and sustainable ones are the ones who are doing well. They want to help, but legislation gets in the way. So let's do it without the middle people and just get on with it. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. Should we welcome Christine back in? I think she's lurking somewhere.
Yeah, I'm here, and I actually have been listening attentively. Aren't we lucky to have such a wonderful panel today? So thank you to everybody, really interesting. And I've been scribbling down some questions for you for when we get to the next part. But one of the tasks that we have today is to judge our infant and junior school fashion poster and video competition. And what you're going to see now, or we're just going to show you the front cover of each one, are the finalists. So the infant and junior school, Mrs. Cox and Mrs. McCrell, they've been really busy trying to get the finalists. Everybody's a winner, and everybody will get a certificate. Everybody will get recognition. The winners will be coming to a waffle breakfast, our famous Friday morning waffle breakfasts, and the winners of the actual competition will get a President's Day prize from the WOW Group as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to just quickly show the front cover of each one. Parents, if you've got any questions, meanwhile, you can put them up on the screen and either to myself or the panel. And let's see the first one. So we've got the posters first. So this is Gemma in year 3. And the next one is Sienna in year 3. I must say these are highly impressive. And the next one is Rosie in year 3. And the next one, Kai in year 4. Keris in year 3. Maria in year 3. And with this one, I think you can lift up the pieces of cloth to see what's underneath there as well. And Cameron in year 4. Monty, right, this is the first of the videos. This is Monty in year 4, because our panel are actually voting on this and they're coming through. So panel, if you haven't given in your vote, please do, because I can see them up on the screen here. And the next one is Charlotte in year 4. And Vanch in year 4. Amelia in year 5. Connor in year 5. Arabella in year 4. Avani in year 5. And that's the last one. And we couldn't play the videos because some of them have got copyrighted music, and rightly so, we would get booted off Facebook, and we don't want to end our discussion. So we're not playing the videos here today. So our panel are going to vote in during this discussion, and we will come up the winners during the conversation. I'm just throwing open to the panel in general. Until I was sat here today, I'd not heard of greenwashing. I think that's, maybe I'm too trusting in the world, but I wouldn't think that companies would deliberately go out their way to deceive. Throw it open to the panel. Tell me more.
I'll just dive in very, very quickly. it's not that they are intentionally looking to deceive. It could well be that they're not necessarily fully understanding, because to put a label that you're fully sustainable takes a lot, as our experts will probably go into detail in a moment. So you've really got to think about what processes or what stages of production, you know, within your business are sustainable. And then it's really about saying, you know, where you are sustainable, but where you're not, and having then a plan to look after all the rest that needs to follow. So it's really just about being truthful and honest about, and it's fine. We're all on a journey. Nobody's perfect. We're not here to judge, but we are here to lay out a path to improvement. So yes, you do get some brands that may think that they're doing the right things, but they may not have gone into the details to really see whether they truly are sustainable, or if they're truly net neutral, or any of the other phrases that will come up. So for example, the product inside a container might well be produced and it be very sustainable, but what about the packaging? So therefore, does the total item then make it sustainable if, say, the packaging isn't, if it can't be recycled? Just top of mind thoughts there. So they're not intentionally necessarily trying to hoodwink us, but it does take a lot of exploration to do it right.
Jonathan, you said something about you take a look, and your company looks to see what is actually going on in accreditation. Can you give us a bit more on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way, you know, I talk about greenwashing and we talk about greenwashing is moving from saying a bunch of words around what you're doing, you know, a very qualitative approach, which, you know, sound as good as they can and can resonate with people, to demonstrating the kind of measurable actions that you've taken to improve the impacts that you're having, whether it's an environmental impact or a social impact, and showing the evidence associated with that. So at Planet Mark, we try and make it really easy for you to credibly talk about what you're doing from a place of truth. And one of the ways the certification works is if you don't hit those annual targets, the minimum targets that you have in place to reduce your carbon footprint every year, then we're going to take the Planet Mark away from you, because we want it to be that really true symbol of progress. And that's really important. That's something that B Corp do really well as well. So they look at, you know, not only asking you all of these questions to say, what are you doing from all these different aspects of sustainability and ESG? Where's the evidence to show that you're doing that as well? And we're going to check all of that. So I think organizations historically, they quite rightly, we are a little bit mistrusting of what they say, because it doesn't always do what they says on the tin. So we need to move into this place of truth to show credibly what we're doing. And if we set a target and we don't get there, the most important thing to do is to talk about why we didn't get there, so other people can learn from that. And that collaboration and shared understanding of what, you know, what went right, what went wrong, so we can all learn, is a huge theme around what we're trying to do. So yeah, that's a little bit about greenwashing and how we're trying to evolve how we talk to people, and also everyone else is really informed now as well, especially young people. They're very they know a lot, so you can't, organizations can't really pull the wool over people's eyes anymore, so we have to encourage that even more.
So do organizations join up to your company, and the same for Paul? Do they approach you? Do you approach them? How does that work?
Yeah, very quickly before I hand over to Paul, a little bit of both. Lots of companies come to us, make an inquiry saying, how can you help us measure our carbon, and, you know, how can we talk to our supply chain and our customers in a way that they are going to really value, and that's what we do. So we help measure and then reduce and then talk about these things, and also engage staff and students on the journey. So someone talks about carbon literacy. That's really important to make sustainability and carbon really accessible for everyone. If they want to get involved and are passionate, we have to make that as easy as possible, because we need many people, more people in this space helping solve some of these huge challenges, which is what I want to challenge the young people to get involved, because you're passionate and you will drive change.
Paul, have you got anything you'd like to add to that?
To add to that, similarly, really, companies, any company of any size in any sector, can undertake the assessment, the B Corp assessment, and it's free to begin and use. And literally tens of thousands of companies are now using that assessment. And once they've answered a number of questions, then if they're doing sufficiently good in sufficiently high number of areas, then they can submit that assessment and have it independently verified. So it's very similar to Planet Mark, just broader in scope.
Thanks. I mean, we do things like we do the Eco Award, and our geography department are really push for that. We've already got an award there. Do you know, is there anything for education that's very similar to what you both do? Is there anything? Things for schools that they could, some kind of accreditation or benchmarking?
Yes.
I think Donna might have be able to input to that.
Yes, there is. It's similar to the Eco Awards, but it's the Ashton Let's Go Zero, encouraging schools to aim for carbon neutral by 2030, which is obviously quite a push, but it's an encouragement and an aspiration as opposed to a commitment. And I think we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago. So they encourage you as well to sign up with someone, and very often within the schools you can get it for free, where you can start to measure your scope 1 and 2, and then there are even programs for looking at how to measure scope 3, and then the children will look at, say, for instance, the food waste, and they'll say, oh, well, look how much we waste at the moment, how can we reduce this? And it becomes a fun, it could come into maths, or it could become a fun program that you do as part of a school curriculum. They could look at the science part in terms of what's happening outside with the weather. Biodiversity, they could rewild tiny parts or look at wildflowers on margins. There are all sorts of things that can happen. But yes, absolutely, I can put you in touch with them afterwards. But Ashton Let's Go Zero is a good one. And then all sorts of people wanting to obviously contribute and help because it's in their interests too.
Fabulous. No. Yeah, absolutely. Really want that details. I'll chat with you after. And this question's for Sigrun, and just something from our assembly this morning. Our new prefects stood up in front of the whole school this morning and introduced themselves. And we've got prefects for academic, for well-being, for charity, international, inclusivity, equity. We've got a prefect for everything, and our prefects just stood up, and I think for the first time we're just so open about who they are. And as you say, it's about being proud of who we are and standing up for who we are. And I was just so proud of them, and I think we're making great leaps, with EDI. Have you seen a great leap in this, Sigrun, over the last couple of years? What do you see in your world?
Yes, so at Royal Holloway in the School of Business and Management, we've introduced BAME ambassadors and over the last couple of years, and we've equipped them, we've given them freedom to do their own thing, and that we've got some academic leads who are working with them, but they've done some really great work in getting speakers from industry in, conducting research about the experience of BAME students, and they've actually decided the term BAME isn't what we want to be known for, and they've changed their name to diversity, inclusion and acceptance, and that's been really well received. And I think it's inclusive of all, and that's been really good to see that it's led by the students. We support them, but it's really important that we don't tell them what to do, and so it's really encouraging to hear what your prefect has said. And I think sort of linking it to greenwashing, sort of one thing that is really important here is sort of walking the talk. So it's all good talking about inclusion, but we actually need to do it in action, because consumers, students, citizens, they can really tell when there's that mismatch between what we could call symbolic communication and substantive action. And that's been really good to see the students doing at Royal Holloway, and really good to hear what's happening at LVS.
Thank you. And I think the other thing that we embraced a couple of weeks ago as well was on neurodiversity as well. So we don't say sort of learning support or learning needs anymore. Neurodiversity, that we're all there somewhere. and that we all have different learning needs as well. So I think LVS, we are really trying to get that message out. It doesn't matter what your strengths and weaknesses are, who you are, what you do, just go out there and do the best you can. And I think, these topics are so important that the children, they grow up with them, because education's not just about history, geography, science in isolation. It's about thinking outside the box and questioning what's going on in our world as well. I mean, in the academic world, there must be a wealth of literature coming out now on these topics. Do you see a growth in that, Sigrun?
Oh, absolutely. So whether it's responsibility or sustainability, is ESG, diversity, there's loads out there, a lot more interest. And I think that's also sort of reflective of what's happening in the real world. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Teresa or Lee who was mentioning, it's of the younger generation. They're really keen to work for employers who've got values and who've got a purpose. And we certainly see that.
Thank you. And Teresa, your book, I'm going to buy this afterwards. I'm going to get what kind of, when you say about the gaps, to try and stop the gaps in cultures in organisations, what sort of gaps are there? What do you see are out there, and what are organisations doing to bridge those gaps?
Thank you. Yeah, so gosh, some of the gaps are huge, actually. And there are many organisations, and we've heard this from the panel actually already, about organisations not necessarily walking the talk, and them also doing what I call exclusive inclusion initiatives. So they might focus on one or two of those initiatives. So whether it be, gosh, this year we're going to focus on gender, and next year we're going to do LGBTQ+, and what they fail to understand is that actually we're all intersectional, so we all have elements of all of these things. So this is where organizations really start to fall down if they don't take an inclusive approach to inclusion. And in my book, I've created a methodology really to help organizations to take inclusion off the too difficult pile. So my methodology has got these 5 key steps. So the first is take stock. So what do we have? What have we got? What's our data telling us? What does it look and feel like? And I think that's as important as the data, actually, because sometimes we can hide behind data, but what it actually feels like to work within the organization is really important. The next step is R, raise awareness. So why is it important that we're even having these conversations about inclusion and belonging within an organization? The next part of the methodology is I, which is all about inspire and involve. So we've heard so far today already that our younger generation, they really want something different, but actually so do our, I'm going to say, more mature generation as well. So how do we start to make sure that everybody understands the role that they play when it comes to creating that inclusive culture? The B is the next kind of component. So that's build for the future. So what we do know from the pandemic is it's clearly had devastating impacts for many individuals and their lives, but it's also accelerated so many things for organizations as well. So how do we really harness the best elements of that, and how do we build for a future that is really, I'm going to say, sustainable, actually? And then the final part is the E. So the methodology creates tribe, because it's all about us creating that sense of belonging. And the E is often forgotten within organizations, and it's about embed. How do we embed all of these things so that actually they're not tick box activities, they're not something that somebody remembers to do or a line on somebody's job description, it's part of an organization's DNA. So that's the framework I've created in my book, and those are, if organizations step into those, they'll start to see where they're doing really well, because some organizations are doing well, but actually what are the key areas that they also need to focus on in order to create that holistic approach to inclusive inclusion.
Thank you. And a question for Lee. Lee, I know you're the HR director for Enterprise Holdings. So not just maybe with Enterprise, but maybe with HR in general, because I know I don't want to put you on the spot with your own company. But what do you see from HR point of view? How are things progressing, maybe with the signalling to get people to apply to companies and maybe induction? And what's changed in the last couple of years, do you think?
Well, I think companies are really talking a lot more about their mission and purpose and how it relates to how they do business. And so, because people want to hear about that, they want to understand that they're joining an organization that they might see a future for themselves. But also, what is this organization doing? How is it impacting my community? How's it impacting the environment around me? What are we doing to solve some of the issues around, the environment or food poverty or educational skills? And so I think that you're starting to see a little bit more about mission and purpose. And some organizations can really connect the dots really quickly. And sometimes it's hard when you're a brand new person coming in. How do I impact this huge organization? And so you have to really put it into perspective for that individual and take a really individualized approach, even if you have a very large organization. It's almost treating that like a small business would, where it's getting to know somebody and getting to know somebody authentically and letting them bring themselves to the workplace. So and then how do you really get people to think that we can be a force for good, and what does responsible business mean? So that's just some really high level thoughts. But it's not easy. I mean, there's so many dynamics that go into this, and it crosses, it's not just HR, it crosses all silos in the business. And so a business has to really figure out, how do I harness this and bring everything together to make sure we're positively making an impact? And that sometimes is, I probably said it a lot easier than it actually is. That's one of the harder things to do. And that's why the measurement tools are so important. I mean, what gets measured gets managed, whether it be your diversity, equity, inclusion stats, or your carbon emissions, or what you're doing to offset. I mean, it's bringing all that together.
Challenge for organizations.
Yeah, but if you can really talk about that and show people how they impact it every day and how what you're doing is making a difference, it can be a really powerful message to employees and customers.
And I'm just thrown over to the panel to ask each other questions. So has anybody got a question for someone else? There's still a couple of votes outstanding as well, so if you can make your votes. Any questions for anyone? Oh, maybe we've lost her. Maybe we haven't got a panel there still. Lee, have you got any questions? Because I can see you, so I know you're there.
I'm here. I think maybe just what do you see? And maybe I'm interested in this because we hire a lot of graduates, and just what are you all hearing is on, I think, people's mind, as they go into the business world as their first professional role. I mean, what are you hearing is important to them?
I can jump in and provide some insight there as to what we're hearing from Planet Ark members in general, because they want to showcase what they're doing when they're hiring the best talent that's out there. We're in this time where jobs are more plentiful than perhaps they were a few years ago, and I think young people, we're seeing a shift away from prioritizing what's the best role for me financially, is how can I adopt a greater sense of purpose around what I do. And if as an organization, if the very nature of your organization perhaps doesn't isn't contributing directly to helping solve some of these local and global issues, what is it within the role that will help you feel good about what you do? And that's really, really important to people. So we see, I see people moving into the financial services space, and they want to focus on ESG as part of their job. We see people moving into, manufacturing and engineering, and they want to focus on, electrification of things because they want to help decarbonize the world. And if organizations can credibly show how you can play an active role in our company's sustainability and ESG journey, you're much, much more likely to be able to hire the most talented and passionate people into your organization, and actually they're way less likely to leave as well. So if I'm feeling good about the place I work, I'm not going to, go and look around for other jobs, even if, maybe I could get paid more. But actually, I feel good about the people where I work and the people I work with. So I'm not going to do that. So yeah, that's what we're seeing and hearing quite a lot at the moment.
That's good. And we've had a comment come through from one of our parents as well. She says, I love the response that the children did not want to be known as BAME, but inclusive diversity, taking ownership of their own narrative, very empowering. So that's a lovely comment coming back as well. And any other questions for our panel coming through from any of you? Anyone got a question?
I'd quite like to know, my children are now in their late 20s and early 30s, but I would love to see the school curriculum change to what, away from so many of the, the standard things that they get tested on, so that the school can see how well they're doing, and how well the school is doing, to be more around what the children, the style of the children's learning, so that we can solve some of the crises that we have on this planet, and so that also that businesses can show what they are attracting their children to, particularly around the ESGs, because children, as one of you have said, want to work for organizations that reward them appropriately, not necessarily financially, but they want to work for good organizations. And maybe the school fairs that used to happen in terms of businesses don't happen like that anymore. I just see such a shift towards a world that is different, and I just wonder if a panel of parents, kids, and schools, couldn't change the formula. It's a very broad question, I know, but I sit here.
We've lost you slightly there, Donna, but I think I could probably kick in there straight away, because I think most people know what my views are. I think we teach a very Victorian curriculum in a Victorian manner, in Victorian exams, and you would have thought with COVID and the way we've done things differently that this is an ideal opportunity for change in how we do things and how we open children's minds up and make learning relevant to the world they're going to go into. So the best learning always happens where there is relevance to the real world. So Yarmila and Lee, your parents, any thoughts from your end?
Well, again, little plug for the WOW group. I think Donna's just given us the the homework, which is going to set our agenda for the next academic year. Yes, absolutely. And I know that we've been talking about the Sustainable Development Goals for quite some time in the World of Work group. And we've been applying layers of that to the curriculum and to Careers Week, etc., with Science Week and STEM and other things. So yes, I think that, and also speaking as an employer, you're making it real. You're making it real for the students to study, and so that they really do feel connected to their subjects and inspired as to where it could take them, even if the actual job they'll land into doesn't even exist yet, and also making it real and relevant for people entering the workforce. One thing that I spotted the other day is that, if I'd understood this correctly, looking at various statistics, that the unemployment figure is sitting at around 1.2, 1.3 million, and the open jobs vacancies for the UK is freakishly just a few thousand off from that same figure. And I'm wondering whether, again, speaking about opportunities for change, whether if we looked at equity, diversity and inclusion in a different way, and looked at all the ranges of that. So yes, BAME, yes, male, female, age, neurodiversity. We have got pockets of society that are unable to work for one reason or another, or do not have the confidence because of situations that they face, health, mobility, etc., or they feel that they're unable to work. But if I think we looked at how some organizations do these days, which is around team dynamics, and where you do have diverse teams, actually more successful, higher performing, higher productivity, and more representative of the actual society, whether if we could use this opportunity to say, well, actually, what could we do? We may not be able to place everybody in a job. And it may not be that there are the right jobs. We need to sort of look at, skills and jobs, etc. But there are big portions. I think the last number was there's about 600,000 that were neurodiverse but feeling that they couldn't get employment. Yet we know that in some cases neurodiversity can be a real superpower. So I'm just wondering if there's a percentage of each of those segments where they feel they can't seek employment. If we could unlock some of that, it would also ease the lack of people, because there's not a meeting that goes by these days that I'm not in where I hear people say there just isn't the talent, there isn't the people for the jobs, for the vacancies. Just a thought. I'm going to throw it out there. Is it an opportunity? Should we be looking at our people differently, making it easier?
I would say yes, absolutely. And the phrase that comes to my mind is growth mindset. It's growth mindset from the individuals. I think Christine said to own your own narrative as someone who's entering work, and that's very much it. You look at a job advert and it normally prescribes a set of skills that you either have or you don't have. But actually, you're an individual, you're a person, and you can do so much more than that. So don't be frightened of approaching employers and saying, well, this is me actually, because you can teach me skills, but what you can't teach is what I have. But similarly, organisations and businesses in particular need to have that growth mindset too. And as Jo Miller said, is to perhaps look at candidates in a different way. And it's far more than just what might be written on a piece of paper on a CV. So yeah, this is a huge opportunity to reset. And it's one that we should take collectively, I believe, because the world of jobs and work is going to change faster than it ever has before in the coming years and decades, as if we're to truly decarbonise and transition to a just economy.
I think also it just add a little bit, from an education point of view as well, with social mobility and the issues surrounding education, and that a third of children do not pass their English and Maths GCSE. So right from an early age, they're actually told you failed. And I find that totally unacceptable. So I think the world of education has to change, and we have to start thinking about how education can embrace all children, and all children have equal opportunity to education. I mean, Sigrun, you're in education, you're probably equally as passionate as I am about that. I get quite uptight and emotional about it at times. Any comments from you?
Yeah, totally. I think so. And also think about my own background. My father left school at 14 and then went back to school and went to university. And he was so positive about it that all I knew from a young age that I wanted to go to university. Well, guess what? At the age of 42, I'm still at university. So that I think that was really inspiring. So hearing positive stories is really really important. I had a question first of the rest of the panel. We talked a little bit about silos and isolation, and I think so what is really key for equality, diversity, inclusion, but particularly for sustainability, environmental and social sustainability, is about working in partnership, which is also the SDGs that Donna had behind her wall in your previous location. And the question is, how can we get out of that isolation? How can we work better together across functions, across organizations, across sort of bridging the world of work and education as well? How do we do this? I think today's a good example, but any other suggestions?
I'll just kind of kick it off. I mean, I think if organizations have this as part of their values or cultural compass, that brings everybody together. So what your mission is. How does this impact what we do every day? And that's a reminder for senior leadership that's walking the walk, and then how do we measure and what do we do, and how do we put together a more global plan rather than just a siloed plan for one department. So just to kind of kick it off from that perspective, I think that's one of the things I see lots of organizations that really have it in their cultural compass or their values. It really starts to bring everybody together. And make that a common way to approach it.
Great, that's wonderful. Look, thank you to our panel. I'm just going to go around. I need one piece of advice from all of you. Okay, I'm going to go around the screen. Paul, a bit of advice for me, please.
Thank you. To go back to greenwashing, which you mentioned at the beginning, we're all consumers. Be discerning, be critical. When you want to buy something, first of all, think, do I actually need this? And if you decide that you do, then check the claims of the person or the organisation or the business that is selling it to you, because greenwashing is rife, and just stop and take a moment.
Donna, I think I know what you're going to say, but a piece of advice, please.
Not necessarily. I would think, be individual, and try and fix something that you've got, or make it your own, upcycle something, put two things together. Have fun with your individuality, because that's what makes you unique. And obviously all the sustainability issues go without question, but I would just enjoy your buy something and that you love and hold on to. I mean, I have things in my wardrobe that are 40 years old, and they but in terms of sustainability, I think the future is bright as long as we stick to our principles. Thanks.
Thank you. Teresa, advice for me as a principal in the school. What's your advice?
So my advice would be to continue to lean in and keep the conversation going. I think the more that you can, I'm going to say, challenge the status quo and spring free all of that kind of innovation and energy and ideas from our youth of today, they will shape our tomorrow. So I think, for me, it would be about keep that conversation going and give them that platform and support that they will need.
Brilliant. And Jonathan, your advice, please.
So I guess rapid change is coming. That is inevitable, and that will continue to accelerate. So we have to make sure that it's the most positive change it can possibly be. So being passionate, curious, and to an extent courageous, right? There's some scary things out there on the horizon. But with a bit of courage and passion and optimism, and being vocal about what's important to you, businesses do listen to that. Young people have moved the dial massively on climate in particular, as well as all of these other diversity and inclusion issues. That is being driven by the energy of youth, and keep that going. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Brilliant. And actually, our fifth aim, we've got 5 school aims. The fifth one is to be bold and courageous in all our endeavours. So that definitely means something moving into the future. I think Jarmila and you, Lee, we've got our work cut out now for the next perspectives, I think, and the next period now, looking at how we keep this conversation alive and what we do. And thank you to Jarmila and Lee as well for everything you do for the WOW. So before I say goodbye, I'm going to tell you the winners. So the winner of the poster competition was Sienna, with the majority of the votes actually, and the winner of the video, which wasn't such a majority but a really good win, was Amelia. So Sienna and Amelia are President's Day winners, so well done. So they will get their prizes on President's Day. But thank you to all our panel today. Thank you so much. It's been an interesting conversation. And Sigrid, I missed you out. What's your advice to us?
So building on from what Jonathan said, and you've got as your school motto, don't think you cannot make a difference as an individual and as a school, because you absolutely can, and that will multiply through the parents, through friends, and in the wider school network. So don't think you can't make a difference, because you can.
Really good one. You can make a difference. So thank you to our panel. Thank you, Jarmila and Lee, for a really interesting session. And if you're watching at home, please get your children to watch as well and to enter that competition. And we'll send some of the examples of the essays to our panel as well. Thank you to our panel. Thank you for listening today, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.